If you're an aspiring trader, you need to hear this. If you've been looking into trading for some time now and you just haven't pulled the trigger, this video is going to change your life. Now, I know starting a new career path can be a scary and difficult choice, but the earlier you start, the easier your life is going to be. You often hear of people that have a dream and have an idea that they really want to bring into fruition, but it just never happens because they were too scared to pull the plug. In today's video, we're going to talk about that. What's up, you guys? It's Keith from Stock Hours here, back again with another educational video. Today, we're going to be talking about getting started in your trading career. So just to start off, anything worth doing in life is going to be difficult and it's going to be some form of a risk. But today I'm talking to all of the young traders and all of the older traders as well. A lot of people think, I really want to do this, but I'm just gonna push it off for a little while. And then it comes back up again. I'm gonna push it off for a little while more. There's only so much pushing off you can do before you get to a point where you feel like you cannot take that risk anymore. And do you want to live your life regretting the fact that you never even tried? Now, personally, I always think that if you have something that you're dying to try out, you need to just jump in and give it your full effort. If it doesn't work out, then that's one thing, but at least you can say you tried. Now, personally, I got started when I was around 14 years old. And yes, I know that sounds crazy, but yes, I was 14 years old and I was in junior high school at that time. This is when I first heard about the stock market and even knew that it existed. As a young kid that wanted to make money and was not even old enough to get an actual job yet, I was doing everything I could to scour the internet and figure out different ways to make money and make income so I could be sufficient on my own. This is when I had an ad pop up that introduced me to the stock market. Now, did anything come from that ad other than introducing me into the stock market? No, but just the introduction into the market was enough to pique my interest. From that point on, I studied day in and day out every single day throughout junior high school, trying to figure out how the stock market works, what goes in to make these stocks move, and obviously, how can I profit from that? So obviously, at this point in my life, I was extremely young and I had nothing to lose at that point in time. So there was nothing holding me back from using my piqued interest to take it to a whole nother level. So for any young traders out there that are interested in getting started in the markets, I would say your time is now. And this goes for everybody. If you are trying to start learning how to trade, there's no better time to start than now. It doesn't matter if you're 14, 15, 16, 50, 60, 70, you can always learn a new skill. But moving on to my next point, I do often ask myself if I would have waited till later in my life when I had an already established career path, would I have taken that risk? And I think a lot of the times that I may not have, and my life would be in a completely different trajectory than it is right now. This is why I'm so thankful for getting introduced to this so early on, because it makes it so much easier. I didn't have any other responsibilities at the time. I could put as much time as I wanted to into learning how to trade. But I noticed once I graduated high school and I was 18, 19, and I was working my jobs, I didn't really have that much time. If I didn't already have a decent foundation and a decent base to build off of, I don't know that I would have been able to grasp the concept that quickly. But I already came into it with somewhat of a foundation of how the market works, why stuff moves the way it does, obviously what volume is, what price action is, all of the stuff that is necessary in order to take the trades that we take. What I'm saying is, if you have a job and you have an established career path, you can absolutely take that jump into learning. As far as education goes, you don't even need to be present in the market to get educated on trading. So I know personally, I started young, Nor started young, and a lot of the interns started fairly young before we had an actual established career path outside of trading. Now, we do have one manager right now, and his name is George. He had a great job whenever he first started learning. He already had an established career path, and he had more than enough reason to say, you know what, I'm not gonna take the risk. I'm gonna stay here, I'm gonna put in my time, and then I'm gonna retire. But that isn't what he did. So I'm gonna give him a call and we're gonna see how he feels about getting started a little bit later on in your career path. All right, so we got George on a call here, and I just went over some of the struggles that I had when I first started trading. And my struggles as far as getting started were not that difficult compared to maybe some of George's. So I would like to get his input on some of these questions here. So as far as getting started trading goes, was it difficult to make the decision to start a completely different career path when you were already in a pretty established career?
It took a little bit of time for me to actually get to that point. At first, I started whenever, I'll say this all the time. I started right after COVID, just even diving myself into investing, right? I mean, of course, I had my 401k or whatever the case may be, but it was different. Like at that point, I invested in some stocks long term. And then the more I dove into looking at stuff, then that's how I ended up getting into day trading. So I did that for a while. So it wasn't right off the bat. So it wasn't right off the bat. It took me about a year and a half to even start thinking like, oh, I could do this long term, you know?
Gotcha. So, what was the biggest obstacle you had to face when you started actually focusing on day trading? Was it difficult to manage with your full-time schedule or no?
100%. It was super difficult, but it got to the point where I'm like, man, I like this. I like what I'm doing. Do I want to sit there and actually work for this and get better at this? And I did. So what I ended up doing, anytime that I got available to work, I would try to work nights. Why would I try to do that? Because I would be able to get off at 4 in the morning. I would be able to get off 4 in the morning, go straight to the gym, and then trade with y'all, right? And then it was just like if I was just working nights, like vice versa, right? So as soon as I'm done trading, I'll go to sleep and then wake up 2:30 p.m. to get ready for work again the next day at 4. So it was difficult, but I said, okay, I want this. How bad do I want this, right? It's always how bad do you want it? So I wanted it bad enough for me to sit there and not sleep a lot. You know what I mean? Because I was sleeping like 3-4 hours a day when I was going through this, and it was hard. It was hard, but like I said, like it's how bad do you want it?
Cool. So, transitioning off of that, if your job didn't have the opportunity for you to pick whether you wanted to work night shift or day shift, would you recommend that somebody who is already in an established career path and they only have day shift, would you recommend that they find a different job, or would you recommend that they stay there and just put in the time in the evenings to learn?
That's the hardest question for me to sit there and say, because everybody's different, right? So what does that mean? If you have a job, let's say a day shift job, we know a few people that have day shift jobs, like and then they work from home, right? I don't want to mention too many names, but like they work from home, so they can make that work, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. If that's the case, then just make it work like that. If you have a job where you're not allowed it at all, or at least look into long term. So once you start looking into long term, because I feel like long term is for everybody, anyways. At that point, especially because that's how I started as well, just looking at long term. At that point, you might transition into actually get into to day trading, right? So it all depends mentally, like where they're at, money wise as well, how much money they have. You don't want to sit there and just quit your job right off the bat, or because this is hard, right? At that point, you're gonna have the mentality like, hey, I need to make money. The moment you say I need to make money, that's the moment that everything's gonna go downhill, right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to sit there and do that. But I definitely recommend putting in the work. You know what I mean? Put the work in. There's paper trade. There's so many. There's on demand. You can go back and like test things out as you're learning and learn. Like, okay, I would have took this. Let me go see back and see how it played out, right? Or whatever the case may be. Like, there's so many ways. So yeah, definitely. Like if you can't do it during the day because of your day job, there's really no excuse to still learning, because how bad do you want it? Do you want this bad enough to sit there and work on yourself after you leave your 9 to 5? You see all those memes all the time on Instagram or whatever, like, hey, once you get off at 5, you need to work on yourself. It's not like you're working for somebody else from 9 to 5, but like, when are you working for yourself?
Right.
So it could be long-term investing, it could be short-term, whatever the case may be. Charting is the same, in my opinion, for long-term stocks. Even it doesn't have to be options.
Yep.
It can be just shares. The thought process and the charting is the same thing, right? So yeah, I definitely like put the work in if you really want it.
So, my personal experience with that is I had a job that was day shift, and I personally didn't transition jobs to working night shift until I was already pretty consistently profitable with the very small amount of time that I had. So, I had about 30 minutes every morning where I could wake up, trade, and then get to work. But throughout that time, there was about a year to a year and a half there where I was working that and I was making sure I was there for every single lesson in the evening. I was still putting in the work, learning new stuff from YouTube, doing stuff on my own, just trying to figure everything out. And I personally I didn't even quit my job yet. I just transitioned to a different job that was more tailored to trading. I waited a long period of time before I did that because I was making more at that previous job. So would you say, like, if somebody's making 50, 60K a year at a day job where they have a tiny bit of time in the morning and then they have their evenings available, would you say that they need to transition their jobs to make it more tailored to trading?
I think once they're ready, yeah, they can make that decision.
Gotcha.
They have to be ready first. So what do I mean by that? Before I even decided to quit my job, I made sure that I didn't have to buy another house. So I bought a house. I had already bought a brand new truck. I did everything I had to. I had money in the bank and everything before I even decided to switch, transition into something else. You have to make sure your personal life is in order because
Right.
at that point, you're not going to sit there and be thinking, I need to do this.
Yeah.
Anytime you need to do something, it's not going to go well. So as long as you have all those other things on the side, personal, then you can make that decision because that's a very big decision, right? It's a
Yeah.
huge decision. It's not like you're changing your shoes or buying new shoes. It's a huge decision.
Hmm.
And but once you have all those things ready and set to the side, when you dive into that decision, you need to dive in. They need to dive in. Whoever it is needs to dive in like full fledged and just go for it and keep working. All that extra work that they were doing to get to that point to even think about that, they need to keep doing it.
Exactly. So, what I guess this is going to be an easier question since you went in depth that far into my previous one. But when would you recommend somebody going full time into trading? Or would you even recommend somebody going full time into trading if that's their only source of income?
If that's their only source, to be honest, no. Like I said, I when I did it, I had other sources of income. Right, I have a house that I get a rent from. I help my mom on certain things, and then I started another business with my mom. So like I get that's already three, right? And then I got
Yeah,
my
and that's
day
what you're
trade,
doing
like my
right
day
now,
trade number
actually, right?
four. Yeah, yeah, and right now I'm actually delivering some stuff over here in Dallas, right?
Nice.
Uh, Half the truck is almost gone. I should be done earlier today.
There we
But
go.
yeah, so I mean, no, day trading, I love it. I love the fact that you can do that, but I wouldn't recommend it because it's a very hard job. Day trading is not easy, but it's once you figure it out and you get out of your emotions, you're able to deal with your emotions not being in a roller coaster.
Mhm.
Then at that point, I'm like, okay, yeah, then go for it, right?
Right.
If your mind, if your state of mind is correct and all that, then yeah, go for it. But you have to be ready. You have to be ready.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time. I know you're driving right now and you probably need to get back to your business, but I think it's cool that we got George to hop on an educational video here and share some insight with us. So I appreciate you. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll get
Thank
to
you for
wrapping
having
up
me,
the
brother.
video here.
All right, brother.
All right, peace. As far as struggles of my own went with the learning curve, I was young. Like I said, I didn't have that much money. I had money that I had saved up from playing music over a few years, but I didn't have a large disposable income. So I will say, things that make it more difficult to learn is that I didn't have that much money to be able to put into my education. The good news is you can learn for completely free. We have free days every week in Stock Hours. We have free education all in our playlists on the Stock Hours YouTube channel. And we have free Wednesday night live charting sessions to where you can ask me any questions that you want to. And like I said, this is all for completely free. So there is a ton of free resources out there for younger traders that are just not getting started because they don't have the money to put into a paid group or a paid course or whatever the case may be. So I would say that that is probably my biggest struggle that I had to face in my learning curve of trading. Other than that, getting started young, it was super easy to be able to put the time in that I needed to put in order to study the charts, study everything about trading, and just learn all about it. I didn't have any time restrictions. I didn't have any other restrictions or anybody else to take care of other than myself, which once again, I am extremely grateful that I started as early as I did. But just because I started early and it worked out well for me doesn't mean that it can't work out for somebody getting started later on in their career. I know we have at least one student in Stock Hours right now that is in his 50s, and he just started like 2 or 3 months ago, and he's absolutely killing it. Now, the things that he does in order to learn is, first of all, just being a good student. Make your mind a sponge to all the information that you possibly can that you can get for completely free. If you start taking in all of the free education and then combine that with a group that walks you through everything that you're gonna do throughout your trades, this is just setting you up for success. Shout out to George for being in this video. I really appreciate his help. And if you guys are interested in more advice on how to trade with a job and how to structure your career path around your trading, let me know in the comments and I'll make a video on that next. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I hope this helps you guys out and maybe made you take the jump to start actually putting in the work to learning trading. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.